Heidi-ho! Welcome to the ARC. We've got loads to discuss, but first, let's take a gander at this new song by Frank Sinatra.
Cue the track.
In other words, please be true. In other words, I love you.
Great new track by Frank Sinatra. He's going to be a superstar.
On this beautiful day, April 5th, 1949, it is 66 degrees and sunny.
Perfect day to go to the beach.
Time to get down to biz. The North Atlantic Treaty is signed in Washington, D.C., creating the NATO Defense Alliance.
The discussions between the Western nations concluded yesterday, April 4th, when the foreign ministers of 12 countries in North America and Western Europe gathered in Washington, D.C. to sign the North Atlantic Treaty. It was primarily a security pact, with Article 5 stating that a military attack against any would be considered attack against them all.
When the U.S. Secretary of State, Dean Acheson, put his signature on the document, it reflected an important change in American foreign policy.
The treaty includes Article 4, which triggers not military intervention, but merely consultation over military matters.
The key section of the treaty is Article 5. It commits each member state to consider an armed attack against one member state to be an armed attack against each of them.
Article 6 states that the treaty only covers member nations' territories north of the Tropic of Cancer, plus French Algeria.
I wonder if this will work out.
Now, a much-anticipated interview with the President of the United States, Harry Truman.
Please give a warm welcome to President Truman.
How are you today?
I am fantastic. Thank you for asking.
Now, I know this was a couple years ago, but tell me, how did it feel taking over the presidency after such a beloved president had passed?
Of course it was devastating to hear the news of his passing. However, I knew I was well equipped with a great cabinet to fill in his shoes. Being the one that needed to handle the war, I had a great responsibility on my hands. But I was prepared and knew what I needed to do. Thank you for asking.
Do you have any regrets about dropping the atomic bomb on Japan?
Although it was an incredibly difficult decision, I have no regrets. That bomb prevented America from invading Japan. This invasion would have taken the lives of many hundreds of thousands of Americans. My responsibility as president is to do what is right for this country, and that was the decision that needed to be made. Thanks for asking.
What compelled you to take action in the situation with Berlin?
After I had read the letter from General Clay that suggested that we should send in large tanks across the Soviet zone, I realized the responsibility we had to help. However, I did not believe it would be successful if done this way. The choice I made to do the Berlin airlift was incredibly successful and helped many in a nonviolent way. Thank you for asking.
Why did you choose to run for a second term, and how did the outcome make you feel?
I ran for a second term because I needed to prove to myself and to the country that I could win the presidency on my own merit. I hadn't had much support going into the election. So winning the election was something that gave me much pride. Thank you so much for asking.
Why did you feel it was necessary to integrate the armed forces?
I felt it just and morally right to protect the rights of all men and women, especially those who fight to protect this country every day. Thank you to those men and women, and thank you for asking.
Lastly, do you think NATO will be important in future conflicts?
Yes, I very much do think NATO will be important in reaffirming faith in the principles of the United Nations and the desire to live in peace with all people and all governments. Thank you for asking.
Thank you very much, President Truman, for taking time out of your busy schedule to answer our questions.
Now, time for our sports update. The New York Giants signed their first black players, outfielder Monte Irvin and pitcher Ford Smith.
The Cleveland Browns beat the Buffalo Bills 49-7 in the All-American Football Conference.
Now, let's take a moment to talk about a wonderful invention, the microwave.
What's the microwave?
Yeah, what's the microwave?
Have you ever wanted food, but you wanted it hot, but you had round about 5 minutes only? The all-new microwave is here for you. Just plug it in, insert your food, and wow, piping hot food in seconds. Good for kids, good for moms, good for dads. The microwave is easy to use for all people. Heat up leftovers in minutes, and you have dinner for the whole family. For sale soon near you.
On this day in our history, in 1614, John Rolfe married Pocahontas. Congratulations to the newlyweds.
Now, it is time for our letter to the editor segment. Today, we received a submission from Ferdinand Magellan. Since the 40s have been a decade full of war and destruction, how do you think the 50s will go?
I believe the 50s will be a terrible decade. The decade will be full of new wars. The Soviet Union will invade Antarctica. There will be a nuclear war over Antarctica. It will end with the destruction of Earth. I think the 60s will be better, though.
Thank you for that wonderful answer, Andy. And thank you, viewers, for listening in on this episode of the ARC.